Now, if you will please join us in the community invocation by Larry Woodard, or take this as a time of reflection. Welcome, Larry.
I've been coming so often that I feel like I ought to be the council chaplain.
You can certainly do that.
Second.
I just wanted tonight in my prayer echo the thoughts of the mayor when she talked about the police shootings in Dallas and Baton Rouge, and then here we have another one today. And she asked the question, where is our moral compass at this time in our nation? So with that as a backdrop, let me just pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, this has been a couple of terrible weeks for our nation. There seems to be anger at every turn, and it is causing our policemen and women to be ambushed on a regular basis. My prayer tonight is that at least in Meridian, Idaho, we revisit the moral compass that has made our nation great and turn again to you for solace and help. I ask that our local police force be kept safe. When they leave their homes each day for duty, may they hug their wife or husband a bit tighter than before and simply whisper a prayer of safety for all. One of the longtime Meridian policemen and his family attend our church, and I've watched his daughter grow up from a little girl to a young lady. I can remember the anguish when he volunteered to go with a Marine unit to Iraq. I thank God that you have protected him and others as they perform their duties. Our moorings are rooted in your word, the Bible. It is in this book we hear your wishes for us to live moral lives. So many of these wishes are being ignored, and we are paying the price. Tonight I simply ask you, God, to protect our men and women in uniform, whether it's a police officer, emergency personnel, firemen, or a member of the armed services serving overseas this hour. Lastly, I pray for Mayor Tammy, who gives this city a moral bearing that many follow, and our city council members who have wisely guided our city over the years. May they individually turn to your word on a daily basis to find the direction needed to lead a growing city that within the next year or two will exceed 100,000. Bless this council tonight and the decisions being made. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Larry.
You want to ask him if he's got a pen?
Council, adoption of the agenda. Mr. Borton.
Mr. President, item 6A is proposed resolution number 16-1150. Item 8B is proposed resolution number 16-1151. And we'll be adding item number 11 to the agenda, an executive session per Idaho Code 74-2061F. And with that, I would move for the adoption of the amended agenda.
Second.
Okay, you've heard the motion and second of it. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item, 5, consent agenda.
Mr. President,
Mr. Borton.
that we approve the consent agenda as published and for the president to sign and clerk to attest on all necessary papers.
Second.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second. Clerk, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Councilmember Cavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Mylum.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer.
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd.
Aye. Okay, item 6A, from the mayor's office, we got a resolution for the appointment of J.C. Jones to seat 3 of the Meridian Historic Preservation Commission. And I think we all know J.C., and she happens to be here. She couldn't miss a Tuesday night. I would entertain a motion to accept that resolution.
Mr. President,
Mr. Palmer.
I move we approve Resolution 16-1150.
We've heard the motion and a second. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Councilmember Cavner?
Aye.
Councilmember Mylum?
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer?
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Borton?
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd?
Aye. Congratulations.
Did you want to say
Thanks, J.C. Okay. Huh? J.C., would you like to speak?
Mr. President, Council, thank you so much for the opportunity to allow me the chance to be involved with the community in this position. I'm really excited. The commission has some fun stuff coming up, so you'll see me back here. The mayor kind of prefaced you on the Children's Museum project, which I'm involved in, and I'm excited to get caught up on what the commission's been doing and do good work. So thank you all very much.
Thank you for accepting it. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Okay. Item 6B is the Hometown Hero Award, and I will turn that over to Chief Niemeyer for this.
Mr. President, members of council, thank you. It's a great honor, and every so often we get to stand before you and our community and exemplify and talk about a community member that has done something that truly does exemplify why Meridian is so great. And tonight we're going to be here to honor Matt Huff. I'm going to turn the podium around as I talked to Mr. President about and announce this. So please join me in recognizing Matt. So Matt, I'm going to have you come up and join me. And I'm also going to ask Taten's family to come up and join me as well. Good evening. Taten, you're up here front and center, buddy. So as you know, Mr. President, council, members of the community, the mayor started a Hometown Hero Award program a few years ago, and tonight we're very honored to stand before you and recognize one of our community members, Matt Huff. On the evening of June 21st at the Tuscany Triple, which is a kids triathlon that takes place in the Tuscany subdivision, a resident of the subdivision saved a child who had jumped into the pool and was having some problems. Matt Huff was outside the pool enclosure watching his own children compete. And as he did so, he noticed that a young boy was having some trouble after he had jumped into the pool, and that young boy is standing right here next to me. So Matt immediately climbed how'd you describe that? The fence? Like a wrought iron fence, pretty tall, and scaled that as soon as he realized that this child was having trouble, and jumped into the water fully clothed. I don't know if that was the same clothes you had on or not. Fully clothed, and was able to get Taten out of the pool. Without his quick actions, this outcome may have been much worse. And this really exemplifies what this community is about and the people that live here, looking out for one another in this type of situation. So, Matt, what I'd like to do is, on behalf of the mayor, the city council, and the fire department, read to you a Hometown Hero Award that we have for you. The Hometown Hero Award is presented to Meridian residents who perform selfless acts of heroism, going above and beyond the call of duty in service to others in our community without regard for attention or personal gain. So this is presented to Matt Huff in recognition of your quick execution in taking charge and administering life-saving actions to a young boy who was drowning. Your prompt service on the 21st day of June 2016 unquestionably saved his life. Given this 19th day of July 2016, so with that, Matt, I would like to present you with this award.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. It's an honor, and I appreciate the recognition, and I'm just grateful that he was okay, and here to enjoy another day and be a kid and I'm sure that there was many more people right behind me, and I just happened to be the first one in the pool. And I feel like God helped me that day. Be alert and aware. And in the right position to help him, and I want to definitely recognize his hand, and I felt that shortly after it happened, that I was positioned that day to not stand and wait, as we all do in a lot of situations where something goes wrong, and the first thing we do is panic, and time goes by and goes by. But for some reason, that day I was there and jumped over that fence, and can't really remember what happened, but I helped him out, and I'm grateful and honored. My good friend Romeo Gervais, he definitely knows I wouldn't do this for the recognition, and I appreciate him, and I appreciate all of you. This is an honor, and just hope that all of us can pay it forward anytime we can to jump in and help. When I was a boy, I remember I was probably 4 or 5 years old. It's one of my earliest memories. I was at a grocery store with my dad. He was going to college in Logan at Utah State, and we were sitting in the car, and my mom had ran in the store to get some groceries, and there was a guy that just, looked at a place. He was standing in front of the grocery store, and my dad kept watching him, and soon enough, a lady came out, and this guy grabbed her purse and took off running. I remember my dad jumping out of the car and running with one of the other store employees, and they chased this guy down and stopped him. And my dad was a hero to me when I was that age, and I've always remembered that, and always tried to help out whenever I could. So I appreciate this honor, and again, I hope we can all step up and do our part in the community, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Picture? We'll come up front and get a picture.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much. Item C, Police Department, Chief Levy.
Mr. President, Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I don't know if he's still in the audience, but I'd like to thank Larry for his kind words and prayer for the law enforcement officers. It has been a difficult past couple of weeks, and we're still thinking of the officers in Dallas and in Baton Rouge, and then, of course, today in Kansas City. However, I am grateful to be a part of this community. And this has been a great start for this council session. It's been all positive. It's been pretty awesome. And so I'd like to keep it on that track if I could. A little bit of history in the Meridian Police Department is we wanted to participate in a state accreditation process with Idaho Chiefs of Police Association. And frankly, it took 4 chiefs for that to happen. It wasn't anything special that I think that we did. It's just that this city has been growing so rapidly, and it takes a great deal of work to do to accomplish that. And so we were grateful enough to receive our state accreditation in 2013 after many, many years of hard work. And he was supposed to be here today. He's running late. But Lieutenant Scott Coliani has been the liaison to really make that happen. And it's been his staff that is, and himself really has put in a great deal of work to make this happen. So if he happens to show up, call him on being late first, and then we can congratulate him on his efforts. Really what it is, it's 94 standards that the chiefs of police have agreed upon in the state of Idaho that are best practices for our state. They cover anything from mission statements to strategic planning, policies and procedures, use of force, driving, equipment, evidence storage, evidence handling, vehicles, and the list goes on. They come into your department and they turn it upside down, and you really are vulnerable. They come in, they look at every nook and cranny, every policy. They talk to people on the streets, they talk to officers in the station, and they go ride with officers to find out, are you really doing what you say you're doing? So in 2013, we were accredited. It was supposed to be good for 5 years. Well, 1 year later, the state association decided, you know, things changed so much in 5 years that we think it should be 3. So we had to get reaccredited after 3 years instead of 5. So this is about 2 years too soon for me. But I put a letter on each of your keyboards just so you would know what I'm talking about, and I also left a letter for the clerk for the record as well. But I'd like to read into the record this short letter if I could. It says, Dear Mayor and Council members, it is a pleasure to inform you that the Meridian Police Department has successfully completed Idaho Chiefs of Police Association reaccreditation process. During an on-site inspection by members of the ICOPA accreditation team on May 18, 2016, your police department was found to be in compliance with all accreditation standards set by ICOPA. The milestone achievement came with no small effort. Our special thanks go out to Chief Jeff Levy and to his staff for taking the opportunity and putting forth their efforts in meeting the accreditation standards set forth by ICOPA. This is an accomplishment that you and the citizens of Meridian can be proud of, as it demonstrates your dedication to maintaining a progressive and professional police department for your community. Once again, on behalf of the Idaho Chiefs of Police Association, we congratulate you and your city on this outstanding achievement. And the last item I would have, what I would tell you is that we were the 14th department in the state of Idaho, and now I think there's only 18 police departments and 1 sheriff's office that's accredited within your state. So with that being said, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions or comments, Council?
Well done.
Congratulations, Chief.
Thank
to you
you.
and your staff. Very appreciative. Okay, we had no items moved from the consent agenda, so we'll start with the action items. 8A is a public hearing on the proposed user fees for Meridian Parks and Recreation Department regarding the facility located at 936 Taylor Avenue, Meridian. Garrett, I guess it's you.
Looks like it.
Okay.
Councilman Byrd and members of council, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you guys tonight. The fees that you guys see proposed in front of you now are the current fees that the YMCA currently hosts for the hourly rate at the home court. One reason why we wanted to go with these proposed fees is to keep a smooth transition from the ownership of the Y to the ownership of the city. Along with the smooth transition period, we've compared these fees to other gym rentals basically around the valley and around Idaho. In particular, Boys and Girls Club, currently the Garden City facility, as well as the City of Boise and the Fort Boise Community Center. Looking at those rates compared to these rates, the fees you see in front of you are the going rate per hour per court for that. The discount proposed in front of you, the 10% for 200 hours or more booked throughout the year, and then 500 more for 20% discount throughout the full year, are basically a bulk discount. The way we're running, the way we're holding that is you book it, you pay for it. So, and all those fees have to be paid for up front to get that discount. The open gym fees that you see as well in front of you are the fees to help cover the cost of the program. We want to run that open gym program for the community members that aren't involved in a league, that aren't involved in a Y membership, that aren't involved in just a youth organization. They just want to come down and shoot hoops, hang out with their friends and family, play some pickup games, get some instruction for kids and things like that. So the fees there are very similar to what the going rate is, again, for open gym facilities all around Idaho in particular. They also reflect very similar to what Fort Boise does in their open gym program. Those fees are basically to cover the cost of the program. The hourly court rentals, like I mentioned before, will actually help cover the O&M portion per that hour that is reserved. That's basically what I have to say with the fees. Any questions for me?
No. Any questions?
Mr. President. Garrett,
Kavner.
couple of questions. Related to the fees assessed for open gym times, how are we verifying if someone's coming in as a Meridian resident or not, specifically when they're a youth?
For youth, if they're coming with youth, they have to be a certain age for that, or they have to be accompanied by an adult. Okay. At that point, we look at their IDs, car registrations, anything that'll prove that they are a Meridian resident at that time.
Additional follow-up?
Go ahead.
Can you just maybe walk us through a little bit more of the thought process on charging a fee for those that want to access the open gym?
Sure. So the fees are there basically to cover the cost of O&M during that time, as well as staffing for that time as well. We want to host those type of things, and obviously, like I said, cover the cost of the program. And it's very similar to the adult sports programs that I run. Every league has some costs, whether they're resident, non-resident type of thing, to cover the cost of that league. We want to do the same thing. It's run this as a recreational program to help cover the cost of the facility.
Mr. President, one additional for me. Do you have an assumption about then how many users you're going to have in the gym at a given hour to be able to cover those O&M?
Not necessarily. I mean, it could be heavier one day and heavier the next. It's kind of one of those, you want to have between 12 to 15 people there to help cover that hour or per hour. The reality is we don't know until we really get in there and run the program. Very similar like we do with the current recreational program. You try it and adjust things. And really we can come back at the end of the year and I know with my programs I evaluate them monthly, weekly, that type of thing, kind of see how things are going. The current open gym idea right now that we're going with, we've had a lot of requests for open gym volleyball, open gym basketball, pickleball in the evenings, because right now there's really no indoor pickleball in the evenings, as well as just a fun family night, not competitive, just come down, shoot hoops with the kids and things like that. So that schedule hasn't necessarily been set in stone yet by any means, but we're looking at Monday through Friday in the evening time for those. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
So, yeah. Any additional questions?
Okay, this is a public hearing. Anybody would like to testify? Seeing none, council, what's your privilege?
Mr. President, I
Mrs. Roberts.
move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We go on to 8B, which is the resolution approving these fees.
Mr. President,
Mrs. Roberts.
I move we accept proposal 16-1151 to accept the user fees for home court.
Second.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second to approve resolution 16-1151. Madam Clerk.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Real quick, a comment if I may.
Okay.
I appreciate the work that's went into parks on this. I have just I've struggled from the get-go on this, that we're charging our residents a fee to come in and use a gym that our taxpayers have helped to pay for. So I'll be voting no on this. It's not a reflection of the work that Parks has done. It's just my perception on what we should be charging our taxpayers.
Thank you. Any other comments? Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Councilmember Cavanagh.
No.
Councilmember Mylum.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer.
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd.
Aye. Okay, next 8C, public hearing continued from June 28th for the Brundage Estates H2016-001 by LC Development. You, Sonia?
It is, Councilman Byrd. If you'll all recall at the last hearing, the applicant addressed some concerns of staff that there were several block lengths that exceeded our maximum length standards. She had shown a conceptual development plan with some changes to the plat, and then the council had directed the applicant to come back with a revised plat showing those changes. The applicant has done so. That should be part of your packets. She is asking for condition number 1.1.5, which requires a minimum of 14.99% of qualified open space, just to be modified slightly to, it's just still 14%, it's just a little under what was shown previously. So if the council makes a motion to approve this tonight, I would just ask that condition 1.1.5 be modified accordingly. And this is, here on the overhead, the plat on the left is the previous plat that was submitted with this application. The revised one is on the right.
Council, any questions for staff? The applicant want to testify? Only if you have questions. Okay. Have we got any questions for the applicant? Anything else, Sonia?
Nothing else,
Thank
Councilman Byrd.
Council, anything more needed by you?
Public hearing?
So if not, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. President,
Mr.
I
Borton.
move we close the public hearing on item 8C, H 2016-0001.
Second?
You've heard the motion to close the public hearing on H 2016-001. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Council, you need any questions or any discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion one way or the other.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Borton.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Borton. Didn't we already approve
They changed it.
8C1? Isn't that what we just voted on?
No, we just closed the public
Was there-
hearing.
oh, okay, well then I'll move. I thought that's what we were voting.
I just write down the numbers.
All right.
Mr. President.
Mr. Borton.
Move that we approve item 8C1, the revised preliminary plat, and to include the reference by staff and the applicant with regards to conditions 1.1.5 and the modified open space calculation.
Second.
Heard the motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Councilmember Cavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Mylum.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer. Councilmember Little Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd.
Aye. Council, 8D, which is the public hearing for H 2016-0061. I will open the public hearing, and staff. Josh.
Thank you, President. This is an application for Harmony Hills Assisted Living. It is an application for a development agreement modification. The site, the actual site for the development agreement is this entire highlighted area. Their actual site that they will be developing are these two parcels here along Overland Road. Just to be clear, the site is east of Tech Lane and north of Overland Road. just east of Stoddard Lane and south of the freeway. The applicant is requesting to amend the recorded development agreement that was approved in 2014. The approved concept plan depicts a mixed-use development consisting of 3 retail buildings ranging in size between 7,000 square feet and 11,250 square feet that is adjacent to Overland Road, a 180-unit multifamily development, and a single office pad site adjacent to the interstate. A conditional use permit for the multifamily portion of the site has been granted and is currently developing with a 190-unit apartment complex to the north. So this portion here is being constructed as we speak. The applicant now desires to amend the approved concept plan in order to develop a nursing care facility. The new concept plan depicts a 48,000 square foot nursing care facility, 2 7,000 square foot retail buildings, and a 190-unit apartment complex and future office pad site. The proposed concept plan also illustrates access to the development, site layout, parking, and site circulation. It is important to note, go back to the site plan here, the property to the west has been approved to develop with a vehicle sales facility, Bish's RV. The recorded plat approved an access to West Overland Road and annotates cross-access to that property. The submitted concept plan was revised to allow the interconnectivity between the 2 uses. Staff has concerns with recreational vehicles using the shared access. With the approval of the Bish's RV sales facility, the applicant was approved an access to Overland Road farther to the west. Staff encourages the applicant to coordinate with the adjacent property owner to clearly delineate that the shared driveway is to be used as a vehicle sales entrance only, and the westernmost driveway is to be used as a service entrance to minimize conflicts between the 2 uses. With the recent update to the Unified Development Code, nursing care facilities are now allowed through the approval of a conditional use permit. It was previously prohibited. The applicant has subsequently applied for and will be coming before the Planning and Zoning Commission on August 4th for a conditional use permit for this use. As you know, this is a development agreement modification. There's been several applications on this site over the years, and this is the most recent one to modify that, as I said. Staff is in support of this, and as I said, the conditional use permit will be going before the Planning and Zoning Commission on the 4th of August for their review. Stand for any questions you have.
Council, any questions for staff?
Not this time.
Not at this time. Is the applicant here? Yes. Did you have any questions? Come up, state your name and address, please.
I'm Brent Barfus. I am the site superintendent for Ramsey Construction and representing Dirk Perdue on this meeting.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Would anybody else like to testify? Seeing none, council? Need any more questions answered while in the public hearing? If not, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. President,
Ms. Milam.
I move that we close the public hearing on item 8D, H2016-0061.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to close the public hearing on 8D. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's closed.
Mr. President,
Ms. Milam.
I move that we approve to amend the recorded development agreement, instrument number 114034780, which is item H2016-0061, with all staff and applicant comments.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve H2016-0061. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Councilmember Cavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Mylum.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer.
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
Sorry about that. Councilmember Byrd.
Aye. Before we go into department reports, I'm glad you made it, Lieutenant Caloloni.
Thank you.
We are very proud of you for this accreditation. You did a great job, you and your staff, and the chief said you'd be here on time, but well, something come up, so.
I have 2 words for you, Matt Damon. That's where I've been. I thank you for the kind comments. It wasn't all me. I'm surrounded by some very talented people that help me and support me, and they're just as much too part of that. But thank you. Appreciate it. I'll pass it on.
Well, thank you very much for your hard work. Okay, department reports. 8A, Parks and Recreation Department requesting some spending money.
Good evening, Mr. President and council members. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. We have 2 projects that we have savings on. Currently there's 3 median islands on 10 Mile Road. These are south of the freeway interchange between Overland and the freeway. They were installed without landscaping when the interchange at 10 Mile Road was complete. These islands will always be the city's responsibility to landscape. They're not the detached areas between the curb and gutter and sidewalk. So we have $108,000 of savings from both the Meridian Road interchange landscaping and the U-Stick Road interim improvements that we would like to transfer over to this project to complete the landscape installation of these 3 roadway islands. Just one thing to note as well, I mean, the city has been paying our landscape contractor to maintain these islands in regards to weed control, and they've told us that there wouldn't be an additional cost to maintain landscaping because it's really just plant material and rock that's similar to the islands that are north of the interchange. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
Any questions for Mike? I've got one, Mike. It's $108,000. Is that what it's going to cost us to do those 3?
Mr. President, we haven't bid it yet. Okay. We're requesting to just the savings from the other projects to be transferred, and spending authority will, we have a set of plans that are bid ready, so really what we need to do is just let bids and see where we end up. We have an opinion of cost that was right around $100,000, but those were old costs, and they were part of ITD's bid that was going to be a Davis-Bacon wage type situation, so we expect it to be less.
Okay. Council? What's your pleasure?
Mr. President, I move we approve the transfer, is that the appropriate term, of funds for the savings from the other locations to potentially be used at this location? 10 Mile?
Second. Okay, you've heard the motion and a second.
Mr. President, just a clarification for the motion maker. I assume that includes the spending authority for up to $108,000?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Second agrees.
You've heard the motion and the second. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Councilmember Kavner.
Aye.
Councilmember Mylum.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer.
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd.
Aye.
Vote to spend money. All right.
You got 8B2.
Thank you, Council. Mr. President and council members, we have another similar request. This one's at a different location. The improvements at Story Park have been completed, and those improvements were completed under budget by $130,000. We're pretty pleased about that. It was a good project. We have an irrigation well that we're currently using to irrigate the park. This well was connected years and years ago. It was originally drilled downtown to help prevent infiltration into sewer lines. And these wells are no longer needed. They're shallow irrigation wells that weren't installed according to the local or the updated standards now for point source protection and groundwater surface contaminants going into the groundwater. So in addition to its age, it was drilled in 1960. There's contamination issues with this well. We are requesting spending authority to take the savings from the Story Park improvements and get this well and move it into, drill a new well into the park. And then our Public Works Department, they've committed to sealing this well as part of their program. I think they've sealed 4 or 5 of these old wells downtown, and this is the last remaining one. It was kind of on the list to get rid of, and we said, wait a second, we've been using it for park irrigation water, so this is just a hurdle that we'd like to complete and get over and have a proper well that's drilled to the current standards for groundwater protection in the park, and eliminate all the infrastructure. There's pipes that go under 2nd Street and across Franklin, and so we'd appreciate your approval of this.
Council, any questions for Mike?
Mr. President.
Mr. Kavner?
Mike, is anyone besides the city utilizing the current well?
Mr. President, Mr. Kavner, no.
Okay. Just one follow-up then. My assumption is that the public won't be utilizing the new well either? It'll just be used by the city for the
Nope.
irrigation of the park?
Irrigation only.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions? Mike, is this, don't we have a well right there by Mo Brooks Field, that little house and stuff? Isn't that a well?
Yeah, Mr. President, that's the pressurized irrigation pump station.
Okay, that's, yeah, pump station.
So this well pumps into the vault behind it, and then we pressurize it and onto the park. So we would propose to move the well directly next to that house, and it would just be a casing above ground. We have power there and all the infrastructure close by.
Any questions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the request for, to transition the existing well into Story Park, so close off the first well, with the savings, the $130,000 of savings.
Second?
You've heard the motion and a second.
Coach.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Councilmember Cavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Mylum.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer.
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd.
Aye. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Item C is the city clerk office. She's going to give us an update on the Dairy Days after presentation and discussion.
Council President Byrd, members of the council, I have a memo in your packet that also summarizes all of the information from our after-action meeting that we had here on July 7th. But it didn't go into your packets till late, so you may not have had a chance to review it, so thought I'd give you a quick summary. We decided, or actually the mayor asked us this year, she thought it would be a good idea every year after this, since it's a historic event. It's listed out specifically in our ordinance as something that's exempted from needing to pay for a TUP or a citizen's use permit license. And it seems to come up every year where we have to refresh our minds as far as kind of what it incorporates and how we do it, that we should do an after-action report that we have given to the dairy board, and then we would also bring it to the council meeting, get it on the record, and it kind of helps us refresh from year to year also. So I'm just going to summarize really quickly what's in that memo. Nancy Radford and Stacy Arnold put a lot of it together, but we had a whole team that met afterwards. Councilmember Byrd was there. So the Dairy Days Parade, the estimate, it was approximately 30,000 people. The estimated attendance for the festival, including the art show, was Thursday about 1,000 people, Friday about 2,500 people, and Saturday about 4,500 people. So we solicited some feedback from the Dairy Board President, Hans Bruin, and a few of the things that he mentioned in it was they had great weather, high attendance, and they really liked the carnival operator this year, had really good performance from them. The Dairy Board did meet with United Heritage after and Councilmember Byrd, feel free to add something if I'm missing something. But United Heritage requested a meeting with members of the Dairy Board after the event to discuss concerns about the speed of the parade. They went too, I guess there was points in the parade where it went too fast, and they had a bunch of leftover candy because they couldn't, it was going so fast they couldn't hand out all the candy. And I know in prior years there's been issues with the parade getting stopped up, kind of going slow, and when you have a big lag in the parade, then people come and they try to cross the road in the middle of the parade, which is dangerous. So I think there was some more attention paid this year to trying to keep it going. But then what would happen is if there was a lag, I think is it the Shriners that do the little cars, that would cause sometimes a lag, and then the parade would hurry up and try to catch up. And from what Keith said, or Councilmember Byrd, sorry, some of the poor kids walking were sprinting and exhausted by the end of the parade. So again, as with every year, and I think every parade, timing is always a struggle to try to get it just right. So that'll continue to be worked on for next year. This event this year partnered with the Lions Rodeo, and the Lions Rodeo said that Saturday was the biggest crowd that they have had. The Hillary Bodner said the Arts Festival had a high attendance on Saturday, and they hope to bring it back next year, and I think expand it even more. In your memo, I included a breakdown of the costs. I don't believe, unless Lieutenant Coliani can correct me, that we have gotten a breakdown yet from Specialty Construction on, okay, so we have not received that yet, so we have an estimate there in that cost breakdown for you. We had some recommendations for the 2017 parade. There are some public safety issues, so the event needs to have some more volunteers, and I will let Lieutenant Coliani talk to you about that. Talked about needing to have a barrier between spectators and the parade. Several options were discussed. And that volunteers should walk through the crowd handing out candy instead of throwing it from the floats. We will have a pre-application meeting next year, which is usually held in about February, where we'll go over these after-action notes and continue to try to approve it moving forward. With that, I will turn it over to Lieutenant Coliani if he'd like to make any comments.
Thank you, Council President Byrd. I don't have much more to add. I wasn't at the parade this year. I had it off, but I understand it was a big success. But I did want to pass on some information that was passed on to me by Sergeant Arnold, who couldn't be here tonight. We are going to have to take a look at the volunteers. We just simply felt there weren't quite enough for where we were at comfortably with keeping some of the backside intersections sealed up while the parade and everybody came through and the spectators. But certainly something that's achievable. The biggest thing, from what I understand we're seeing, is there where the split corridor starts and splits out. We have people that will drift over to that island in that side of the street, including kids, and as the parade and stuff come through and the candy's thrown, they come out into traffic. And so we have to find a way, and this is what we're going to work on during the off-season. We're going to have to find a way to where we can block that somehow, whether it's snow fencing or barricades or something, and post it so we can keep everybody on the east side of the road at that area of the parade. In a perfect world, we would hand the candy out, we would throw it out, because what ultimately happens is when you're throwing candy, depending on your upper body strength, it may carry clear over the crowd or it may drop right in front of the truck. And kids and everybody run right up to the truck to get the candy, because it's a big deal and it's a great event. And we certainly don't want to see anybody get hurt. That would diminish the event greatly. And so we're going to have to come up with a balance. I know that there is costs, and I know that this is a historical event, and certainly we're not going to burden it to the point where there's so much money involved and on our end or their end that we take this great thing away from the city. But we are going to have to make some tweaks and changes going into next year to take a look at safety on the route, maybe handing out candy, maybe doing some additional barricades at that split corridor to prevent something from happening. So that's really all I wanted to say. I'll stand for any questions from the police perspective.
Council, any questions?
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Kavner.
Scott, in here, one of the suggestions was for the Parks Department to be more included with the overall planning of the event. Just from your perspective, should police be involved in that as well?
We are, from Mr. President and Mr. Kavner. They are involved in the process. We're in it very early on. Okay. There is a great amount of planning that goes in. I know that we'll start in February again, but we are part of that process and go to their meetings. quite honestly, as this new route has developed with the split corridor, it's still a work in progress. We've only had a couple of parades there, and this one's getting big. I mean, I'll be honest with you, those are big numbers, and it's getting to be bigger and bigger and bigger, and so as things grow, it takes more resources. I just came from a 4-hour meeting learning that, and so as events get bigger, it takes more resources. So we're going to take a look at it, but we are involved. Thank you.
Great.
Any other questions?
Mr. President,
Madam?
Scott, I just wanted to, I guess, reiterate part of what you just said from my own perspective. As we were driving on the float, that was the main thing that I came back with. I'm like, we got to do something about that. Because there were kids all on the side just running, trying to run into the road and get candy. Cars were driving by still at a fast speed, and it was really scary to watch. So something definitely needs to be done about that intersection. They've got to be blocked off sooner, I think.
One of the issues that was brought up at the meeting from the police perspective, and since Lieutenant Coliani wasn't there, as I know Sergeant Arnold said, they would walk down a row pushing people back, and as soon as they get to the other end, they've already pushed back out again, so they got to go back and do the same thing because people just keep moving back out. And so I think that's why it was discussed more volunteers, and there's some numbers in that memo there, but they think more volunteers with helping with some crowd control to keep people safe.
I will say this, the first parade I went to was in 1997, and it's much bigger now. So there's more that goes on.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Let me clarify one thing. I was there as a representative of the Meridian Dairy Board, not for the city.
Okay.
And looking at the Meridian Dairy Show Board from their perspective, my perspective from their view, we've almost been so successful that we got ourselves in some problems. But I think it went very good. We had large crowds. The Dairy Show Board spends quite a bit of money to put on the show. We have the fireworks on Friday night, which, and then we had a band, and Hillary and Ellen DeGeneres, within 3 months, put on an art show that's, I'm sure, is just going to get larger and larger and larger. So the meeting, JC, was very, very good. I think all of us come away with some ideas, and Sergeant Arnold had some great ideas. Having watched this parade since the mid-'60s and being a participant in it since the mid-'90s, I've just seen it grow and grow and grow, and I don't want to lose it, but I want people to be safe, and I think we can. But it's like every other community. The larger you get, the less volunteerism you have. You know, in the 70s or something, if you had 30 Kiwanis or Lions or somebody down, volunteers out there. The parade wasn't, you didn't need them, but you had them. Now, when we need them, we don't have that. So hopefully we can get back to that. But as a Dairy Show Board member, I just want to thank the police department, the city clerks. Nancy has been so fantastic with making sure that everything is in line. The police department has always been first class. The fire department has always been right there. So we just, as a citizen, I appreciate what you do for that parade, because that is probably the state's biggest parade.
It's big, yeah. We'll strike a balance.
And the Parks Department spends a lot of time picking up some trash, too. They put in a lot of hours.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Okay, moving on. Anything for future topics? If not, I'd entertain a motion on the executive session.
Mr. President,
Mr. Borton.
move that we go into executive session pursuant to Idaho State Code 74-2061F.
Second.
Heard the motion and second. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Councilmember Kavner?
Aye.
Councilmember Mylum?
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer? Aye. Councilmember Little Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd.
Aye. Did you lose your voice there for a minute, Ty? Huh? Did you lose your voice there for a minute?
No, I was hesitating. I was fully contemplating.